There are some problems in life that do not begin with us. Some troubles are not caused by enemies, not caused by witches, and not caused by bad luck. Sometimes, the root of suffering is hidden deep in the past. Buried secrets, forgotten crimes, and truths that were never revealed. This is the story of a family whose struggles could not be explained, until a shocking truth was finally uncovered. There was a family in the community that people could never understand. For many years, nothing worked for them. Okonkwo and his wife had 5 children, 2 sons and 3 daughters. When the children were still young, life was normal. They were not rich, but they were gradually improving. Then everything suddenly changed. The very year Okonkwo finished building his small bungalow in the village, the family's fortune began to collapse. At first, it started with small problems. His contracts stopped coming. Business deals began to fail. Money started disappearing faster than it came in. Then the situation became worse. As the years passed, none of the children succeeded in life. The sons struggled endlessly but earned almost nothing. The daughters grew into adulthood, yet none of them got married. Their mates had already married, built houses, and started families. But Okonkwo's children remained in their parents' house, depending on whatever little their aging parents could provide. People in the community began to whisper. Some believed that enemies or villagers were behind their suffering. For a long time, the family had believed the same thing. And they had searched everywhere for a solution. They went to many churches, different ministries, prophets, pastors, deliverance programs, night vigils, and prayer mountains. They fasted, prayed, sowed seeds, and gave offerings. They were even told to give charity to orphanages and motherless babies. But nothing changed. Out of desperation, they also went to native doctors and traditional shrines. Goats were sacrificed, chickens were offered, coconuts were broken on their heads for cleansing, and they even went to rivers for sacrifices. Still, nothing changed. Years passed. The children grew older. But the problem remained. Among the children was James, the younger son. One day, while moving around the city looking for opportunities, James met an old university friend named Oluchi. Oluchi came from a wealthy family and worked with the federal government. When she saw James again, she noticed how much he was struggling, but she still liked him. Despite his poor condition, she accepted him. At some point, she advised him that he could not continue living like that and encouraged him to learn a trade and build something for himself. James agreed. He went to learn tile sales and installation, and after some time, he became a tile dealer. Their relationship became stronger, and eventually, they got married. During their traditional Igbo marriage ceremony, something unusual happened. Instead of asking her father for the normal household items that are usually given to a bride during Igbo traditional marriage ceremony, Oluchi asked her father to give them money instead. Her father was surprised, but he agreed. On the day of the ceremony, he gave her a check worth a large amount of money. When they returned home, Oluchi handed the money over to James and told him to use it to build his business. That money became the foundation of James' tile business. Slowly, for the first time in many years, something good began to happen in the family. There was a small light of progress. But that light did not last. As James' business began to grow, his family began to depend heavily on him. Every problem was brought to him: medical bills, food, house repairs, transport money, his parents' needs, and his sister's needs. James carried everything. Gradually, the business began to collapse again because money meant for business was constantly used to solve family problems. Oluchi kept watching this happen again and again, and it made her very angry. By that time, they already had 2 children, a 3-year-old daughter and a baby boy. Oluchi was not suffering financially because she had a stable government job and came from a wealthy family, but what pained her deeply was that James' only source of income was being drained. One day, Oluchi visited her best friend, who owned a small grocery shop. They were sitting outside the shop talking when a young girl, about 16 years old, walked into the shop. The girl looked quiet, beautiful, and innocent. She bought a bottle of Coca-Cola. As she was about to leave, she suddenly stopped and stared at Oluchi for a long moment. Then she walked closer and asked if Oluchi knew her. Oluchi said no. The girl introduced herself as Blessing and said she was seeing something, but it was not very clear. The atmosphere immediately became tense. When Oluchi asked what she saw, the girl said it concerned her husband's family. She then said that Oluchi should ask her father-in-law whether anyone in her husband's ancestors had ever killed a virgin girl. Oluchi was shocked. The girl added that she could see a girl about her age, but the vision was not clear, and that the girl had been killed by her husband's ancestors. After saying that, she left. Later, Oluchi asked her friend about the girl. Her friend explained that the girl, Blessing, had a special gift. She could see things. However, sometimes when the visions came strongly, she behaved like a mad person. But one thing about her was that everything she said always came true. Oluchi went home and told James everything. They decided to ask Okonkwo, James' father. Okonkwo said he had never heard anything like that before. He even contacted elders and people in the village, asking if anyone knew anything about such an event. Everyone said no. The matter seemed to die down. But about 3 weeks later, Blessing appeared again at the same grocery shop. This time, she looked completely different. Her hair was rough, her clothes were dirty and torn, her body was covered in dust, and she looked like someone who had been wandering for days. She suddenly began shouting that Oluchi had put her in trouble and that the virgin girl they killed was tormenting her. She said the girl was angry because she had revealed the secret and that the spirit was asking why she did not keep quiet. She started arguing with an invisible presence, saying she did not kill the girl and that she only spoke what she saw. Then she ran out. The shop suddenly fell into silence. Sensing that something was deeply wrong, Oluchi's friend quickly reached for her phone and called her. At that moment, Oluchi was still seated in her office, going about her normal routine when the call came in. The instant she answered, she noticed the fear in her friend's voice, and her attention sharpened immediately. Her friend began to explain what had just happened in the shop. She described how Blessing had walked in looking completely different from before. Her appearance was disturbing, her hair was unkempt, her body dirty, her clothes torn, and she had no shoes on her feet. She looked like someone who had been wandering for days without care. Then came the most frightening part. According to her friend, Blessing had started shouting uncontrollably, claiming that an unseen presence was attacking her. She insisted that the spirit of virgin girl, one who had been killed long ago, was tormenting her. She spoke as if she was arguing with someone no one else could see. She claimed that the spirit was angry because a secret had been revealed. Hearing this, Oluchi felt a deep chill run through her body. At that moment, she realized that the situation was far beyond ordinary understanding. Immediately after the call ended, she contacted her father-in-law, Okonkwo, and explained everything to him in detail. The old man listened carefully in silence. After a long pause, he admitted that the matter was becoming frightening and could no longer be ignored. He agreed that if the girl was being attacked because of what she had revealed, then there was likely some truth hidden behind her words. He made a firm decision to travel to the village himself and investigate properly. The next morning, Okonkwo began his journey. As he traveled along the dusty road leading to the village, his thoughts were heavy. For many years, his family had suffered unexplained misfortune, failures, disappointments, and struggles that never seemed to end. Now, A disturbing possibility had been placed before him, that something terrible had been done by his ancestors. Something that had never been corrected. When he arrived at the village, he went straight to his ancestral compound. The house he had built stood strong, but something about the environment felt different to him now. There was a strange uneasiness he could not ignore. Still, he pushed the feeling aside and began his investigation. Over the next few days, Okonkwo went around the village asking questions. He spoke to elders, old women, and long-time residents who were known to remember the history of the land. He asked carefully if anyone had ever heard of a young virgin girl being killed many years ago. But everywhere he went, the answers were the same. No one seemed to know anything. After several days of searching without results, Okonkwo began to lose hope. One evening, feeling tired and frustrated, he stopped at a small palm wine bar to rest. While sitting there quietly, he began speaking with an old acquaintance about his family's long-standing problems and the strange situation that had brought him back to the village. As the conversation continued, a young man who had been nearby approached him respectfully. The young man introduced himself as Matthew. As he spoke, he revealed something important, something that immediately caught Okonkwo's attention. Matthew explained that his own lineage was connected to Okonkwo's family history. According to him, his great-grandfather had served Okonkwo's great-grandfather many years ago, back when he was still a young boy, not more than 10 years old. Because of that close relationship, his great-grandfather had been exposed to many things that happened within Okonkwo's family during that time, things that were never spoken about publicly. Matthew went on to explain that the old man was still alive, although very aged and weak. But despite his age, he remained one of the few people who might still carry knowledge of hidden events from that period. From his perspective, if there was any truth to the story Okonkwo was searching for, his great-grandfather would be in a position to confirm it. This information immediately gave Okonkwo a new sense of direction. After days of searching without results, this was the first time he felt he might finally be getting close to the truth. Without hesitation, he agreed to visit the old man. And that decision would soon uncover a secret that had been buried for generations. The next morning, the young man led Okonkwo through a quiet path deep into the village until they reached a small compound. There, seated outside, was an extremely old man whose body appeared weak, but whose eyes still carried a sharp awareness. After listening carefully to Okonkwo's explanation, the old man fell into deep silence. He closed his eyes for a long time, as though struggling with a memory he had tried to bury for years. When he finally spoke, his words were heavy. He revealed that the story Okonkwo had been searching for was true. A virgin girl had indeed been killed many years ago. The one responsible, he explained, was Okonkwo's own ancestor, his great-great-grandfather. He went on to describe how that ancestor had suffered repeated loss of children and, in desperation, sought help from a powerful traditional priest. The solution given to him was dark and unforgivable. To save his lineage, he had been instructed to sacrifice a virgin girl. Driven by fear and desperation, he carried out the act in secret, kidnapping a young girl from another village and using her for the ritual. Afterward, the girl's body was buried quietly within the family compound. The truth, however, had never been revealed publicly. It had been passed down in secrecy. And now, for the first time, it was being spoken openly. The most shocking revelation came last. The old man revealed that the place where they had built their little bungalow was where the virgin girl had been buried. At that moment, everything began to make sense. The years of suffering, the repeated failures, the unexplained misfortunes. What had been buried physically had also remained spiritually unsettled. Okonkwo returned home with a heavy heart and shared everything with his family. The truth shocked everyone, but it also gave them direction. They realized that if the spirit of the girl had been wronged, then justice had to be done. They searched for blessing, hoping she would guide them further, but she disappeared for months without a trace. After 4 long months of searching without any trace, hope had already begun to fade. The family had almost accepted that Blessing might never return. Then one afternoon, without warning, she appeared again. She walked slowly into Oluchi's friend's shop, looking weaker than anyone had ever seen her before. Her body was thin and tired, her clothes worn and unclean, and her entire appearance suggested that she had been struggling to survive. There was no greeting, no explanation. The moment she entered, she quietly asked for food. Oluchi's friend, recognizing her immediately, felt both shock and relief at the same time. Without hesitation, she quickly brought something for her to eat. She took the food and began eating urgently, like someone who had gone many days without a proper meal. The shop became unusually quiet as everyone watched her. When she finally finished eating, she leaned back slightly, her body showing signs of exhaustion. Then she began speaking to herself. Her voice was low at first, but gradually became clearer, as though she was reliving something intense. She spoke about a battle she had just finished fighting. According to her, the spirit of the girl who had been killed had confronted her because she revealed the hidden truth. She explained that the spirit was angry and had tried to attack her for exposing what had been kept secret for generations. She continued, describing how the encounter was not ordinary, but something beyond the physical, something spiritual. She made it known that she did not remain silent during the attack. She stood her ground and faced the spirit directly. In her words, she had fought a battle that no one else could fight. She spoke with a strange confidence, insisting that the power within her was stronger, and that the spirit, despite its anger, could not overcome her. Then her tone changed slightly. She explained that although she had survived the encounter, the situation was not completely over. The real solution, she suggested, had not yet been carried out. At that moment, Oluchi's friend understood that what Blessing was saying was too important to ignore. They had been searching for her for months. Now she had returned, and she was finally speaking. Without wasting any time, she quickly picked up her phone and contacted Oluchi, urging her to come immediately. Because whatever Blessing had just revealed was the key to ending everything. As the shop remained quiet, Blessing continued speaking, her voice calmer now, but firm, like someone delivering a message that could not be ignored. She began to explain what needed to be done. According to her, the spirit of the girl could not rest because she had been killed without honor and buried in secrecy. The injustice done to her had remained unresolved for generations, and until it was corrected, the suffering would continue. She then revealed specific details that surprised everyone listening. She described the village where the girl originally came from, the community, and even traces of her family lineage. It was information that no ordinary person could have known. From what she explained, the solution was clear. The family of Okonkwo had to travel to that village and locate the descendants of the girl's family. They had to openly confess the crime that had been committed by their ancestor. They had to humble themselves, seek forgiveness, and most importantly, give the girl a proper burial with honor. Only then, she explained, would the spirit find peace. Only then would the long-standing suffering come to an end. After saying this, her strength seemed to fade again, as though everything she needed to deliver had finally been released. When Oluchi arrived at the shop and heard everything, she wasted no time in passing the message to Okonkwo. The old man listened carefully. There was no argument. No hesitation. He understood immediately that this was the only path forward. Within a short time, preparations were made. Okonkwo, along with members of his family, traveled to the village that had been revealed. When they arrived, they searched carefully until they found the descendants of the girl's family. It was not an easy meeting. Carrying such a confession required courage and humility. But they did not hide anything. They explained the story exactly as it had happened, the desperation of their ancestor, the terrible decision that was made, and the innocent life that was taken. They admitted the truth fully. They asked for forgiveness. The moment was heavy with emotion. For a long time, the girl's family listened. This was not just a story to them, it was the pain of an ancestor whose life had been stolen without justice. But in the end, something unexpected happened. They chose peace. They accepted the apology. After that, arrangements were made to give the girl a proper burial. This time, there was no secrecy. No darkness. No hidden act. She was honored. Rituals were performed. Prayers were said. And for the first time since her death, she was laid to rest with dignity. Life did not change overnight. There were no sudden miracles. But slowly, things began to shift. The heavy weight that had followed the family for generations started to lift. Problems that had lingered for years began to resolve. Opportunities began to appear. Peace quietly returned. Within months, changes became visible. A daughter who had struggled for years to find a partner finally found love and was settled. Doors that had remained closed for a long time began to open. Plans that had repeatedly failed suddenly began to succeed. Even the long-awaited travel plans of James and Oluchi, which had faced constant rejection, were finally approved. For the first time in many years, the family could breathe again. Later, filled with gratitude, the family decided to visit Blessing. They went with gifts, food, clothes, and money to appreciate her for everything she had done. But when they presented these things to her, she gently refused. Material things, to her, were not important. Instead, she expressed a deeper need. She said she wanted James and Oluchi to adopt her. She explained that her family did not understand her, and that whenever the visions and voices came, they became afraid of her. She added that sometimes they abandoned her, and other times they treated her like she was cursed. She went on to say that she knew she would live under someone's care for the rest of her life, and that she could not live like a normal person. Finally, she said she only wanted to live in a place where she was loved, a family that would not run away when the visions came, but would understand her. Her request touched everyone deeply. Without hesitation, Oluchi and her husband accepted her. The entire family welcomed her fully. For the first time in her life, Blessing found a place where she belonged. A place where she was not seen as a burden, but as one of their own. In the end, what started as a mysterious disturbance revealed a truth that had been buried for generations. A truth that shaped the suffering of an entire family. And a truth that could only bring healing once it was faced. Because sometimes, the answers we search for are not far away. They are buried beneath us, waiting for the moment we are ready to uncover them.